Yeah, well, we should be fair to the authors of ITIL. It is still very early days with ITIL 4. We only have one publication that's available, which is the foundation publication. And we've sifted through that in some pretty good detail, putting together our ITIL 4 foundation training. But we also have a lot of publications that are on the way. You've seen that qualification scheme diagram where we've got, another 6 courses or so that are going to be deployed over the next year and a half. And each of those will have its own associated publication, or at least that's my understanding.
That's my understanding,
So as things come out, we may see a bit more detail, maybe even see ITIL differentiate itself a little bit further from some of the other methodologies that are out there. But I would say certainly at a foundation level, we have a lot more sort of repackaging of what's been popular over the last couple of years, and really just trying to blend it all together. So that's interesting. We'll see where that goes.
Some of the other things we talked about at breakfast were the issue around what's the right phrase? People like Axelos and the rest of it kind of getting locked in terms of there are defined publications and we have to support them and all the kind of the infrastructure that's behind all of this. Whereas in other areas like DevOps, there is no defined, this is the publication, this is what you have to use. Yes, there is the DevOps handbook, but it's just a handbook. Nobody says, here it is, here's the manual, this is what you need to buy. Whereas I think, to some extent, Verism may be facing the same issue as ITIL in terms of publish the foundation, and then the next one, and I keep getting the title wrong, Unwrapped and whatever.
Unwrapped and Applied.
Unwrapped and
By
Applied.
our good friend Johan Bolte. Yes.
And others.
And others.
So are they at risk, at danger of locking themselves into, here's the publication, so how do we keep it up to date? Or if they want to be more flexible, and dare I say agile, what's their approach going to be? I think that's going to be interesting watching those. ISACA, of course, have produced a new version, edition, whatever you want to call it, of COBIT. So again, they're committed to the publication. So you've got Axelos and ITIL committed to publications, Verism committed to publications, COBIT, for example, committed to publications. There's a lot of investment in there. Whereas to my way of thinking, DevOps is like, there is no one defined approach. You do what you want to do.
Yeah, so to add to what you're saying, it is true that historically, at least, with things like ITIL, Prince2, COBIT, you have these different versions of publications that are released, and that impacts not only certification that you hold, because often you want to go back and learn the new content, right, and get recertified, but it also impacts the assessment models that are usually attached to those frameworks. With ITIL, it's been a little bit less formal, but COBIT, for example, lives and dies on whether there's an assessment model available, right? It's all about audit. I wonder how that will all shake out, because when you look at DevOps or you look at blockchain, there's no assessment model for that, right? You implement it based on the guidance that's available in the public sphere at that moment, right? And you're either up to date or you aren't. But there's really no benchmark or baseline for how you've implemented it. And I know that's a stated goal of the Axelos product team, to have ITIL basically never need a dramatic refresh like it has in the past again, right? That they would basically just incrementally update it, continually improve it over time. But then the question becomes, does that also mean you're continually improving the assessment model and having little incremental certifications that come out as a result? How does that work exactly?
That was kind of the history of 20,000, because there was no independent assessment model for ITIL. So it was, originally, it was very, very closely aligned with version 2. You were, to some extent, I know some of my ISO 20,000 colleagues would disagree with me, but to a greater or lesser extent, you were auditing against ITIL. In terms of 20,000, that has moved away again with the most recent edition coming out in September last year, and it's very much further away from ITIL than it used to be. The terminology is much less ITIL understandable, if you like. So it has got rid of all those sorts of things, or it has got rid of them, partly because of ISO rules and the way that it's structured. COBIT, I agree. you've got the assessment model built into it, and that's what organisations are looking for. That's why so many organisations in the financial sector use COVID, because the auditors love it. It gives them the framework and all that kind of stuff, and they can easily test it and those sorts of things. Whereas something like DevOps, how do you test something which every organisation says, well, we do it a different way, we make it up as we go along, kind of thing, following some basic principles. I think it will be interesting to see how that changes over time. I don't think that ITIL 4 will have any major impact on 20,000. 20,000 was developed. It's not future-proof, but then it's only supposed to last for 5 years maximum anyway before it has to be looked at again. I think, to be honest, some of the work that's gone into the current edition, there is an element of future-proofing in there, because it's moved away from saying, for example, you shall have a specific document, for example, a capacity plan, to simply saying you shall plan capacity, and that's it, end of story.
Right.
So I think there is that element of looking to the future in there without having to sort of rewrite everything dramatically every single time. For some of the others, I don't know. I think we'll have to wait and see.